Welcome to the JD Show. Today we have with us amazing Sarah Poynton Ryan. I have been watching Sarah for quite some time, and it's almost like I was intrigued, and there was a lot of content that I was watching. I was like, okay, I really need to bring Sarah to the show. So please help me welcome Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good stuff. So tell me, what landed you into property?
Wow, big question. So I started in property in 2015, and the reason I started in property was because I had a business that was failing before. It was a business that taught me every way not to run a business. Let's just leave it as that little snapshot. I made every mistake you could possibly make, and by the time 2015 came, I was about £60,000 in debt, credit card debt, overdrafts, all the different moving parts, credit cards and so on. And I needed to do something about that. So I listened to webinars, I listened to lives, I did some training, I learned a lot of stuff, and I heard about rent to rent and deal sourcing, and that's where it started. So 2015, I got married, and then when I got back from we had like a week away after we got married, I started my rent to rent business. And I had no idea what was coming. Like, I really didn't really anticipate what was going to happen. And I built a big rent-to-rent company. I built a big deal sourcing company in the next 2 years. I cleared all my debt in 23 months. And then I moved into other things. So the reason for it was actually to serve an immediate need, which was I needed money. I needed to build a business to clear my debts and fix my financial position.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. What part of the journey did you hate?
Great question. Really good question. So I think that there are a few things along the way that I've learned that I wish I'd known sooner, but I'm not regretful that I didn't, because it's taught me a lot. The first one being, be really careful who you go into business with. Pick people that align with your values as a human being versus just wanting money, because money actually doesn't stand for much when things are hard. Yep. Whereas values and vision and the way that respect and things like that matters. So make sure you work with people that align with who you are. I think in terms of like what's been the bits that I've really found hard is I never really assumed success. I always thought it would be really, really hard. And I never really thought I'd be successful at the beginning. I never kind of could see it. And because of that, what I did was build a business that I didn't really enjoy. I built a business that was purely about money. And I was building, like, chasing the cash and becoming miserable doing it. And I think a lot of people in business, and a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the investors that I work with now, I say to them all the time, don't just do the business that you think will make you the most money. Do the thing that actually is going to speak to your soul as much as it's going to speak to your bank balance, because when you combine those two things, you'll be much happier.
It's funny you said that, because I always share with people that you got to design your life first before you create a business. Because once you write down what is it that you want from your life, it's almost like you're working backwards from what you want, and then you say, okay, this is the business that will allow me to design the life. If you're doing it the other way around, which is what most people do anyway, you create a cage for yourself. You practically create a cage, and you could make millions, but it's still going to be a cage for you.
And I think people think that money will bring them satisfaction and happiness and freedom and all the things. And actually, money just makes life very complicated, because the more money you've got, the more expensive problems become, the more commitments you've got, the more wages you pay, the more mortgages you pay, all the things. And when you've got very little, there's very little to lose. But when you've got a lot, there's a lot to lose. And that pressure also compounds over time. And you using the word a cage is a really good example. If you don't build your business in a way that actually serves to your needs as a human being, you will feel stuck by it. And I definitely have been through this myself, and I've learned a lot about myself as I've built businesses and thought, actually, I'm really unhappy. I've got money, but I'm unhappy. Why is that? Money doesn't buy happiness. It takes the pressure off, but living a life that you enjoy and you're excited about is what will make you happy. Being around people that you love, and not sacrificing the stuff that really matters is really important.
It's interesting. You also said that with money, everything is compounded, including pressure, and that's stress in essence. And most people actually don't realize the amount of stress that can increase when it's not, when your business is not designed the right way. How do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with stress when it does actually start to really compound?
So I think how I've dealt with it historically has not always been the right way and the way I'd advise, because I'm always learning, like we all are. I'm learning every day. And I've definitely been somebody who's built a business and done a lot of the stuff myself in order to just be partly in control, partly to save money for various different reasons. But what that's created is a bottleneck eventually, because I can't do everything all of the time. I can't be on here doing a podcast with you and also be doing business over here if there's not a team and processes and systems. So one of the things I talk about a lot, and one of the things I definitely wish I'd introduced sooner into my life, lesson learned, is investing in a CRM system, investing in processes, having systems that actually help me to remember everything and invoice properly and track my rents and stuff like this. Investing in a team that are better at their job than I ever possibly could be takes the pressure off. You then have new pressures because you then need to manage the team, and you need to, make sure that actually the company can pay their wages and keep the, the rents paid and stuff. But when you are trying to be all things to all people, you'll never do any of it well. Whereas if you know your strengths, like I know my strengths, I'm not admin, I'm not ops, I'm sales, visibility, marketing, negotiations. That's me. And that's where I love to be. So you ask me to build a process, my brain's like, and so I don't do it well. I can, but I don't do it well. Whereas I've got an ops manager who's exceptional at her job. And so she does her bit and I do my bit. And together that creates a brilliant business. So I think the thing to take the pressure off is actually to invest, not always like loads of money, but sometimes just time into just looking at what tech and what people you can bring into your organization to help spread the load a little bit. Or a lot.
Here's a deeper question for you. Do you think does patience play a part in being able to tolerate the pressure that's compounded? And if so, to what degree, or maybe elaborate on that?
Do I think pressure? Do I think patience helps to reduce?
Helps you tolerate the compounded pressure when you are massively growing. Does it play a part?
I think it does play a part. I think it does play a part. I also think that sometimes putting expectations in place where you want it to happen, so you make it happen, and actually you're going to do whatever it takes to do it. Sitting back and waiting for it to happen isn't the strategy either. I think you do need to be patient. I think there's a distinct desire for instant gratification in today's society, especially as you get younger. Older folk, actually they're more patient naturally. The younger folk are like, I've done it for 4 months, why aren't I rich yet? Like,
exactly.
Well, because you've done it for 16 weeks and we're out here having done it for 20 years and we're just about like figuring it out. And I think if people could understand the negative impact that instant gratification has on your landscape of your life in total, I think people would probably like to be more patient, because when you are patient and you can see it build over time, use the word compound again, over time, no one just starts a business and 2 months later is a gazillionaire, unless you fall really lucky and you build something that's completely off the scale amazing. But most people starting businesses aren't doing anything new. They're redoing something that's been done before, but they want to do it better. They want to do it in a bigger way. They want to do it in a more interesting way. So yeah, you have to be patient to make sure that you can take the ride as it goes. Otherwise, what's the point?
Here's another question that's correlated. How much difference do you think it makes to really know yourself well enough to your business? So
do you mean what difference does it make to actually know who you are as a human being and what?
As a human being, it's almost like I'm asking, how far stretched a person has to know himself, herself, not necessarily, but before your life becomes a bit more easier in your business.
I think it's not necessarily knowing yourself that's the thing, it's listening to yourself as you evolve that is the thing. So, you know, the person I was 10 years ago and the person that I am today are very different women. Even 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, we are different women. We are fundamentally driven by different things. You know, 10 years ago, I had all the energy of a 30-year-old and I was happy to do 16-hour days and I wanted to do it because I was hungry for it and I loved it. Now, I don't want that life. I don't want it. It's not for me. So that knowing yourself in the moment is important, but listening to yourself as you evolve is more important. Because if I was still trying to behave like I was 30 with the same energy and stuff, I would be miserable because it's not what I want anymore. And that's okay. I think a lot of people, especially women, in my experience, I know men have the same thing as well, but in my experience, I work with a lot of female investors, and I know that they say things like, well, I said 5 years ago, this is what I wanted to do. So now I feel like I should be doing it still. And actually, you know, some of them have had a baby in that time. They've got married in that time. They've got divorced in that time. They've started businesses in that time. They're different women than they were 5 years ago, different men than they were 5 years ago. And I think is a really common misunderstanding that it's like people think it's not okay to change your mind. Like, just because you're a developer now doesn't mean you have to be a developer in 5 years. Just because you run an online business selling, I don't know, pens on eBay today doesn't mean that's what you have to do forever. Just because you're in property today doesn't mean that maybe you sell all your property and put it all into foreign exchange or crypto. If what you're doing is being done because it serves to you now, it's okay to change your mind. And that, I think, is a really common thing. People worry about what other people will say. They'll assume that they failed because they've changed their mind, and it's actually not the case. You just have to listen to who you are today and what the you of today actually wants.
I think you've made a really good point here. Adapting and evolving and listening to your inner voice and your gut, I think, plays a really major part. And I genuinely feel that most people leave it too late sometimes.
They do,
and that can hurt not just the business. That's pretty obvious. It can lead to psychological issues. I must say, I've observed that personally in my life. Some of it I've been through myself. I mean, sometimes my inner voice says, you know, this is, you know, maybe it's time to wrap up this product or service, and I just take slightly longer, and all of a sudden, a few months later, I'm suffering because of it. And I was like, shit, I literally, I was feeling it, like, just don't do that anymore. And just because I didn't stop, now it's becoming a bit of, I think it's really listening to your inner voice and how you feel. And adapting and evolving plays a big part. So
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And I think, you know, to get a little bit kind of hippie about it, actually, your intuition is the only thing that is always on your side. Even the closest people around you everybody's got their own agendas, their own inner narrative, their own reasons, their own things for doing. And yes, they may well be on your side, and yes, they may well be on your team, and yes, they may be really excited for you, but your intuition, if you can tune into your intuition and listen to it and pay attention to what it's telling you, in a lot of cases, and again, I'm happy to say this because I think it's important that people hear it, I've definitely been someone that's ignored that, and then my body tells me that it's not happy by getting poorly. So there'll be a physical manifestation of the fact that actually I'm doing the wrong things, or I'm working too many hours, or I'm saying yes to too many things that maybe I could just say no to, that don't necessarily need to be there, you know. And most people will have some sort of physical reaction, whether it's mental health, whether it's a physical illness or ailment, you know, whether they're just exhausted because they didn't listen to their intuition early enough, or they ignored it when they probably should have said no to something that they said yes to. And they do that over and over and over again, and it actually becomes a much bigger issue. And that will ultimately cost your business money, But more importantly, it will cost you your sanity, which
sanity, which is more important than anything else, I guess.
most important. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to get to the property part very soon. Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
And maybe this is just my perspective, but I just want to see your perspective on this. Okay, I always feel that it's not just about what someone says. It's about what someone doesn't say that you must be listening more to rather than what someone says. And also within the same thing, the more no's we all, I mean, the more no's I say, the less burdened I feel, the easier it gets. It's almost like I've learned to say 99 no's these days. I literally tell 99 no's before I say one yes. Mm-hmm. And since I've started doing that, I just feel this is amazing. I like my life has turned amazingly well just because of that. And when I'm speaking with people, I try and not just listen to what they're saying. Most people don't even listen to what people are saying. But what about the person that? What about the bit that person is not telling you? What are your thoughts on just this?
I think no response is a response.
Oh yeah, major.
And I think people should listen to that. You know, behavior and actions speak louder than any words possibly could. And if they wanted to, they would. And if you wanted to, you would. So either you're trying to do something that you don't really want to do, or you don't know how to do it yet. But then the next bit is you just have to learn how to do it. And if you want to, you will. I think in terms of, to come back to what you said about saying no and boundaries and that sort of thing, I definitely am somebody that has historically said yes to way too many things. And I've reached points of overwhelm in my business in the last 7 years where there's been like 3 points that I can actually remember where I've gone, oh shit, like you're not all right. Actually, you need to take it, rein it back. You need to like look after yourself a bit. Like 3 core points. And each one of those, if I look back at those 3 periods of the last 7 years, it's been because I've said yes to things that I thought I had to say yes to, because if I didn't, I'd lose an opportunity. But those are all of the things that are all the things that have been the things that have gone wrong, because those opportunities weren't aligned with who I was. And because of the way the relationship was, or the pressure it was, or whatever it was, I think that if, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying no to stuff. And I have a saying, like in our company a lot, if the answer is not fuck yes, then it's a no.
It's a no. That's
if you're
true.
Not like all in, and you know, if someone rings you up and says, oh, do you want to come to the pub? If your response is not an immediate, fucking hell, yeah, I'm in, I'm there, I'm coming, I'm on my way, then just say no, because you don't really want to do it, you know. And yes, there'll be stuff in your life like baby showers and birthday parties and hen do's and stag do's and all these sorts of things. And we say yes to them because we feel like we should. But then when you compound that with saying yes to all of the business things that you want to do, plus all the business things that other people want you to do, plus all the things that those people need you to do, then you've got all the stuff that you can't plan for, like tenants not paying, the wrecking balls that come in, all the stuff that you don't expect, the boilers breaking, whatever it might be, the builders not turning up or walking off site. Actually, then you think, Jesus, I wish I didn't have that hen do. I wish I didn't have that thing. I wish I hadn't said yes to that. But everything that's in your diary, everything that's in all of our diaries is in there because we said yes to it. So the only person that can control whether or not you strip out some stuff or not is you, us, individuals that say, do you know what, I actually should just start saying no to things that I don't really want to do. And yes, you'll piss people off. Yes, it will annoy people. Yes, it will be difficult in some cases, but your sanity and your ability to do what it is you set out to do is more important, right?
That is true. Okay, let's get to the property bit. I have a very interesting question at the end of it, but let's get to the property bit. I mean, I'm looking at the property industry, and I remember, I mean, I'm a finance broker and I do a whole bunch of other things, and we invest and we do developments, and I'm looking for below market. There's a whole bunch of things that I do behind the scenes. Um, I'm a very hardcore, person, literally sometimes working hours on end, and I have no limit in my mind. It's almost like I feel tired. Okay, how many hours has it been? 20 hours, and I'll stop on whatever it might be. Okay, or maybe I'm just feeling burnt out. Okay, let's just stop for a week and not do anything, but then go back and really go hardcore. So I have kind of no limits to the way I do things. But when I'm looking at property industry now, um, I think the government is breaking the pattern of the last 110, 120 years. Okay.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on the whole investment space, either as BTL or HMOs or rent to rent, or hotels, or maybe tell us about what strategies you think are actually really working well enough
Okay.
for someone to say, okay, this is what's working, this is what's not working. For me, it's like a no-go zone. Like, I knew literally when they announced Section 24, I was like, this market is going to die. At least for me, okay? I know people who make a lot of money from other businesses. It's okay for them to pick up the money and put their money into a property because they don't need the profits from the property. That's okay. But otherwise, to me, buy to let, if you are a full-time investment, that's a dead zone. Okay. But likewise, what's changed in the last 3 months is I see a lot of businesses either already dead or about to die very, very soon, just because of the utilities and a whole bunch of other things that are happening behind the scene. What are your thoughts?
So I think I have a lot of thoughts on this. So let me break these down into bits. I think in terms of strategies that are exciting for me personally right now, development is really exciting for me, and it's definitely where I'm moving my world. It's where my heart is. Secondary to that, in the property space, I own a lettings agency, and I am very heavily planning to scale that, whether it's HMO management or single let management, but just baseline management, not rent to rent. I had a big rent to rent company. It was a big HMO rent to rent company, and like I said earlier, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't for me. But I also did a lot of the stuff myself, and so I was like on the cold face with tenants, and I just didn't enjoy it. I think in terms of things that, in terms of property, my heart's in those two places: creating homes, managing homes for other people. That is really exciting for me.
That's the space you're in. Okay.
Yeah, and in terms of things that I don't think are working as well as they once did work, I think for me, anybody even thinking about rent to rent HMO right now needs to very seriously understand the numbers and very seriously stop for a minute and think about all of the volatility around utility bills, council tax bandings, legislation, everything that goes into HMOs.
Interest rates, a bunch of other things. Yes.
Yeah. Interest rates if you're buying HMOs, but rent to rent HMOs where you've not even got capital appreciation, just the rent to rent side. 4 years ago, I'd have said to you, rent to rent HMO is an amazing strategy. And I absolutely have said that to people, and I've done it myself and I loved it. My opinion on rent to rent HMO has changed dramatically. The risk, the tenant law position, all of it. You need to get such a good set of numbers together to make it work and to not be exposed really badly financially. I think people need to just be really clear on the numbers before they jump into that. I think rent to rent SA is a really interesting market, because whilst I think at some point we'll reach saturation in the UK with the SA market, there is different type pockets of market inside the SA market, like contractors, holiday makers, weddings. There's all different. So I think we're a long way away from saturation, but it will come at some point. I think in terms of buy to let and baseline buy to let, for me, buy to let works, but not gearing really heavily. So again, the property industry, the training industry especially, tells you to buy it, add value, gear it as high as you possibly can, 75, 80%, however high you can possibly get it, pull out all of the money, redo it. So you're building big pots of debt and cash flow, but you're not necessarily building solid base of wealth. So for me, I have buy-to-lets and I love buy-to-let, and I'm not buying buy-to-lets this year. My plan is not to do any buy-to-lets this year, singles. if a portfolio came along, I might buy a portfolio, but right now buying single units is not for me. But clearing down my mortgage debt is the strategy that's for me this year and into next year. So we're leveraged at about 52% on our whole portfolio. So my equity sits at about 48%. And I want to get that down to under the 30%. And I know some people think I'm mad because they're like, hold on, why would you leave all that money sat there in property? Well, I know that the banks don't control that money. That's mine. And it doesn't matter what the interest rates do. It doesn't matter if they decide to pull in their loans. None of that matters because I've still got a cash flowing business. That's mine and will be mine forever. So historically, where we've talked a lot about, you know, gearing as highly as you can, pulling as much money out as you can, I think there's a shift coming, personally for me anyway, and a lot of people that I speak to, around not trying to take out as much as you can, genuinely leaving equity in bricks and mortar and actually having unencumbered properties that generate cash that's effectively it's not guaranteed because your tenants might stop paying, but you're almost risk free on it because there's no bank pulling in or increasing rates or anything like that. For me, that is certainly again a shift from where I was 4 years ago to where I am now. 4 years ago, it was all about how can I get as much money working for me as possible. Now I earn, you know, I invest in lots of things, not just property. So my money comes from various different pots. So for me, I'm like, okay, why am I building a load of debt when in fact I want to build true wealth? Well, hold on, let's get the portfolio geared as low as we can, and make the money so it's our money. And so for me, that's probably the transition that I've gone on personally in property. When I started, it was all about immediate need, cash flow, money now. Now it's about, okay, you fix the immediate need, you've got enough money. I live in a beautiful house. I have all the things that I want. I was on holiday for 2 months in October and November. Like I travel the world. I do all the things that I love. Now it's about, okay, within 10 years, what can I do now to be creating a lifestyle that's that, but like on a bigger scale? How can I really truly live a reasonably passively incomed life and actually being unencumbered, having other investments that pay me as well is certainly where I'm shifting towards. So developments is really exciting. Clearing down debt is really exciting, and putting that, as we're making money, putting it into other asset classes as well is also really exciting.
Sounds good. Sounds good. For those who are watching this, just slow down and observe. What Sarah is trying to do here is she's trying to manage the risk side of investing into a vanilla part of the property. Remember, she's got income. She's got cash flow generated from agency. She's making potentially a lump sum from doing developments. Whichever that might be, either she's holding on. Are you holding on to these developments, or are you exiting?
So the one we're trying to do at the moment, the plan A is to exit the whole thing and just realize the chunk. We've got a second one that's in the pipeline as well, and that one would be to refinance and keep. So, but to do it on quite a low, So there'll be a mixture, you know, over the next 5 to 10 years as we do this and kind of move more into it. There will be a mixture of those things. I believe that actually every project should have multiple exits. So whilst plan A might be to sell them, in 18 months when we're finished, it might not be the right market to sell them. So actually it might be better to sell some and keep some. But as we're going into it, this one that we're looking at the moment is certainly to sell, is the exit plan.
So those who are watching this, just observe what she means is she's actually managing the risk and adapting, evolving according to the market, but at the same time, she's keeping herself on the safe side in terms of the risk and the debt she has. And that's very, very important to understand, because I think most people, you know, they are leveraged, like you said, you know, pull out all the money and so on and so forth. And that is going to lead to trouble for you, because if you historically look at the interest rates, at some points, mainly 1988, interest rates were in the region of sort of 14, 15, 17%, if I can remember correctly. And if it reaches those numbers again, it may or may not, we don't know that, no one can predict that. No. But if they do happen, and if you're leveraged even 50%, the likely is that you are going to be in deep trouble. So she's playing a much safer game, which I feel is the right way to do it. But at the same time, if you are not in the space, it's almost like if you don't have a lot of equity around and you're trying to leverage highly, the likely is you're going to play a very, very risky game. And I massively recommend you to reconsider, because you could take that money and invest into something else and be more liquid maybe, because remember, property is not liquid. Okay, if you're invested, you are not going to be able to sell at the wrong time. Okay.
This is so important. And I literally just had a call before this call, and we were talking about a client of mine has got a pot of like, it's 5 figures. So we're talking a 5-figure number. It's probably not enough really to do the property deal that she wants to do. And so we were talking about, okay, well, what else could you do with that amount of money? Well, property, it ties it up, like it's in, and you actually can't get out of it when you want to. It takes like 16 weeks to sell a house at the moment from the point you have an offer accepted. Like if you need it today, tomorrow, the next day, property is a really hard place to get your money from. So, you know, this is where understanding your own risk profile is really important. But, you know, something like the S&P 500, which is giving you what, 11 to 13% a year average, is so low risk because it's index fund, it's fund based. So you've got like, I always explain this, like it's not just buying one flower, it's buying a bouquet of flowers and owning a petal on every flower. Like that's the best way to explain it. It's so diversified. You can get in with a tenner or 10 grand or 50 grand, and you can start to learn what that looks like. And actually that compounded over 2, 3, 5, 10 years, even at like a tiny little bit at the start, will be worth a lot more money because, but you can get it out at any time. All right, you have to try, like, make sure you're not selling at a loss and so on, but it's quite low risk. You've got other really high risk options, things like foreign exchange. So I invest in a foreign exchange fund and I've got 100% of my pots at risk, and I know that. And I go into it with eyes wide open, and I'm happy with that. There's an amount of money in there that I'm willing to say goodbye to in order to get, I earn 30% a month on it. So, but again, that's high risk. But it's actually enough money for me to live on most months. And I then have other things happening. I think everybody needs to look at their own risk profile, diversification, and actually look at whether property right now is the right route for them, or whether there's other things that they could be doing. Because property for the sake of it is not, unless you're planning on it and you're excited about it and you want to do it. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning, does it make you happy? Is it what you want to do? Or is it a vehicle to something else? Because if it's a vehicle to get you out of a job so that you can start a yoga company, for example, then property probably isn't the right way to do it. Maybe invest in something different, because property actually comes with a lot of headaches.
It does, yes, it does. All right, that's amazing. Here is a question for you now. Well, and I know this is a very cliche question asked many, many times. It makes a difference. I just want to know your thoughts. What are the 2 or 3 skills you recommend people to build on to be able to get to a point where they have the confidence of financial freedom? Because I feel financial freedom isn't about money. A lot of people feel that it's money. Okay, if I have £1 million or 10 million or 20 million, I'll be financially free. No, you won't be. I personally feel it's your confidence and skills level. What are your thoughts on what I just shared? And at the same time, maybe go a bit deeper into it.
So I think to kind of preempt this answer, I really suggest that people really look at how much they need to be comfortable. Because when I first started in business, I was like, I need £1 million. For some reason, it's always been a big, like a number that I was like, everyone wants £1 million business, right?
Everyone wants £1 billion.
Everyone wants £1 million business. And then everyone wants a 5 million, everyone wants a 10 million, 100 million. And these are just nice round numbers that just come from wherever they come from. And actually, in reality, when you look at money, we all need way less than we think we do. Way less than we think we do. And in property, especially, we become very immune to numbers very, very quickly. So, you know, £500,000 to people that are doing developments is like no money. It's just, you know, we're at the moment, I've got a development to buy a hotel and we are raising for £500,000. We've raised 2 million already. We've got £500,000 shortfall that we're trying to fill at the moment. And for me, £500,000 is just a number. It's just a number that actually, but you just stop for a second That is 10 years at £50,000 a year, 10 years worth of money. So understanding what you really need and aiming for that rather than aiming for like £5 million company, if that's not really what you want or need, is important. And I think the skills, to come back to your actual question, the skill to be able to recognize what that is kind of the starting point. Like, what matters to you? How do you listen to yourself, your intuition, your own inner narrative, and trust it? I think that's something that people definitely should work on. I think people should spend time on their own with their thoughts and actually feel what it is that they want from their life, not just their business, but their life. I think that people absolutely need to get better at the numbers. And what I mean by that is understanding the difference between revenue and profit, understanding the difference between, you know, I did a post about this today on Facebook, and people that say I made £100,000, actually, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, those people invoiced £100,000 and made much less.
Yep.
I think understanding the basics of numbers in business, you know, what is a P&L?
Yep.
You know, what is an operational cost? What is the tax going to be on that particular revenue that you're making? Yep. You know, the numbers, I think people need to absolutely upskill in. Everybody needs to understand the numbers. Your deal analysis needs to be good. It needs to be good enough for you to feel confident, but it also needs to be good enough for your lenders to have confidence, for your investors to have confidence, for the contingencies to be there when the market wobbles around and materials go up and all the other bits and pieces. Numbers is the second thing. And I think the third thing is around deep connection with other human beings, rather than hiding behind a screen or being on social media, worrying about what everybody else is doing and being in this comparison zone that a lot of people are in.
Yeah.
But is to actually get in the rooms with the people that inspire you, get in the communities with the people that are doing what you want to do, and embrace deep social connection with people that are doing what you want to do. If you can improve those 3 areas of your personal skill set, then regardless of what business you're in, regardless of what you do now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, those 3 things will impact your results at every single step of the way.
That is that's a brilliant answer there. Thank you, Sarah.
Pleasure.
What is the one thing, that's the last question I'm going to ask you. What's the one thing that you disagree with that most people find true?
Ooh, great question. Hold on, let me think about this. What do I disagree with that most people find true? What do I disagree with?
That you completely disagree with?
So I think there's a common misconception that people think the harder you work, the better your results will be. So if I put in 17-hour days, if I put in 20-hour days, if I'm always frazzled, I've never got time, I'm moving from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, I think there's this like hustle mentality that I think gets into the entrepreneurial space a lot, especially like the SME entrepreneurial space. Like you've got to be doing, social media tells you, you've got to be doing 24/7 all day, every day. What a load of old bollocks. It's just not true. And I massively disagree with that. I think that, you know, you've got big influencers who are using or influencing, using their position to indoctrinate is the word I'm going to use. And I mean it. Like, I mean it that if you are not doing all of the time and being seen to be doing, then you can't possibly be successful. And I honestly think that's a load of bollocks. So I'm very good friends with someone that's in business with Alan Sugar.
Yep.
And he said to me, Alan Sugar doesn't work weekends. No. He never has. Now, if that's good enough for Alan Sugar, who is a billionaire, then why is everybody trying to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Because of what social media tells them they think they should do. I massively disagree with that. And I think actually, if you can, to come back right back to what we said at the start, what is the life that you want to design? What is the truth that you want to live, and this is hard, and I'm not I honestly don't do this well all of the time. I fall into the overwhelm and I'm like, shit, I need to get back in control of it. But if you can really think about what it is you want and design it to look like that, hire well, invest in tech, come back to the systems, do something that really sets your soul alight and not something that's just chasing money.
Yeah.
And you won't have to feel like you're hustling all the time, because you'll feel happy. And when you feel happy doing what you're doing, you won't feel like you're hustling, and you won't burn out, and you won't break. You'll have time for friends, for family, for school plays, for all the things, and you'll have the money to go with it. Yeah. Whereas that burnout hustle mentality, I think, is one of the biggest loads of nonsense. You don't need to live that life to be successful. No, you absolutely can be successful and live a very calm, quiet, offline life if that's what you want. Work out what it is that you want.
Yep. Thank you, Sarah, for that. I think within that, I'd like to add that it's not about how much input that you put into your business or life or your health. It's the output that matters. So a lot of people have this thing, okay, 17, 20 hours a day. I mean, I do it all the time, but I have a way to balance that. But people think, okay, if I put in 20 hours a day, that I'm going to be more successful. No, you won't be.
Not necessarily.
It's not about 20 hours. Yeah, it's not about 20 hours. It's the output, because you could put in 20 hours and the results are maybe only 2 hours worth of whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. That's not going to help you. What matters is when you do put in 20 hours, if you do,
it's good work.
Output needs to be 200 hours or more, or whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. And that, I believe, comes from a lot of other factors like systems and so on. But I think at the core of that sits creativity.
So I use just to add, I agree. I think one of the tools that I definitely use and make use of in my business is I have a journal, and I use a journal called the Empowered Journal. It's on Amazon by a girl called Emma Deaker. And that journal for me has helped me take what was 16-hour days, working all of the time, but not really finishing anything and not really doing it with real targeted laser focus on stuff, down to as many, not always, but down to like 8-hour days, like normal working days, not always like 9 to 5. Sometimes it's 6 in the morning. Yeah. Sometimes it's lunchtime till 8, whatever. Like tonight, I'm working till about 10 o'clock tonight. Yeah. But I've not worked this morning. So that journal has helped me to structure my priorities. And in that journal, one of the things it does is it has 3 minimum expectations. So instead of a to-do list, 3 minimum expectations on my day. So I will finish these 3 things today, and anything else I do is a bonus. I found that by breaking down everything I've got to do into 3 minimum expectations on a day, it could be a phone call, a podcast recording, and send the email that I've been putting off for a week. Yeah. It could just be those 3 simple things. It could be write the copy for my website. It could be, meet the investor, whatever it is. But if people take their to-do lists and they break them down into just 3 things a day, instead of having a list of 900 things that never get finished, they will finish 3 things every single day, and they will feel like they're making progress. If they do that every day for 30 days, then 90 days, then 180 days, then 365 days, actually, you will be in such a better position than trying to do a list of 25 things every single day. Give yourself a break. Do 3 things. If you want to do more, do it. If you want to shut your laptop and watch Netflix, do it. But 3 things a day is manageable. Our brains can handle it. Like, it won't burn us out. And you will make more progress doing little and often than you will trying to do just loads of stuff all at the same time.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Here is another question. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this. Okay. I know sometimes when I'm watching your content, my question is, what does it take to get another person, if it's possible at all in the first place, to get them to take action?
Really hard question. And I have a training company as well, and one of the things I do is I mentor people to build their businesses. And as a mentor, one of the biggest frustrations is when you say, this is what to do, and then people don't do the thing that you've said to do, and they do everything but the thing. I don't think you can make people take action. I think people have to want to do it, and do it from a place of their own inner like desire to want to either change something, improve something, or achieve something. And I think what you can do is you can empower people and give people confidence and faith in themselves. My job as a mentor, I have two jobs. One, to make myself redundant so that you're self-sufficient and you can do it without me. But the other thing is to give you confidence when you don't have it yet, to help you find your belief in yourself when you haven't quite found it yet. So I think you can't make someone do anything. It's impossible. Like, people are going to do what they want to do. That's just how it is. But what you absolutely can do is empower people to believe that it's possible, and empower people to understand that they are enough to make it happen. I feel like in business, in entrepreneur, in kind of the online space, this small business and like type small like SME, but smaller SME, small SME, sorry. The biggest challenge around taking action is actually not that they're not capable, it's that they don't believe that they're capable. And when you really strip it back, they could do it as well as anybody else, but it's their inner narratives that's sabotaging their results. So you can't make someone do it, but you absolutely can inspire someone to believe and to feel like they are enough to go ahead and do it. And, you know, that just comes from good communication and caring about the results. And, you know, that's it really. People will do what they want to do ultimately.
That's true. But at the same time, here's a question that goes a bit deeper into this. Do you think the existing, or the world that we are in now, this social media and technology that we have around, do you think it's making people, let me just think of the right word. Do you think it's making people, it's almost like, okay, so let me put it in ways that I potentially can. It's just very difficult. Maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, when I used to interact with men as a man, I used to see a lot of alpha men, people who would go and really do things. Right?
Hustle.
Either it is hardcore labor, or it is really getting office work done, but they used to do the work. There was a lot of people doing more work. Now, when I look at the millennials and the new generation, I just find more people who are these laptop warriors, and not a lot of work gets done. Like they just don't want to do the work. And it's not just men. I find women as well, more so men, I think, just my observation. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you take a generation which is just gone, I personally feel that just not going in necessarily the best direction, and get them to look at, say, okay, you know what, you really need to take some action, take responsibility, go and make some things happen for yourself, for your family, and really generally taking responsibility for overall yourself?
I think this is a really big topic, and we've got a whole generation. I sound like a really old woman when I say this, and I really never thought I'd become a 40-year-old woman, but clearly here I am saying really old woman shit. And like, for me, I feel like the instant gratification that youth have accessible to them. Like, we had to, when I was at school, I had to go and look things up in books. Like, that would put Gen Zers into a coma now. Like, that's just not something that they would want to do. Like, we had dial-up, we had books, you know, that I had life without Google, I studied without Google. And, you know, that meant that we had to wait to see. And I was talking to a friend of mine today on the train, and I was saying, my niece, who's 8, I'm really interested to see how her generation ends up in the working world, because in our world, you joined, you made the tea. Like, when I did work experience, I made the tea, I did the filing, I did all of the shit jobs that no one wanted to do. But then I got a bit better and another bit and a bit of responsibility. And, you know, 30, what am I? So I'm 40. I started my first job when I was 15. So, you know, now I'm the CEO of my own group of companies. I have staff. And now when we bring someone in, they make the tea and they do the admin and they do the bits that I don't really want to do and the other team don't want to do. And that's, in my mind, that's earning your stripes to be able to progress. So, you know, I still think, though, in terms of like inspiring and motivating people to do what they want to do, actually comes back to giving them the belief that they're capable. And it has to be something they want to do. We're we're in a society now, an economy, whatever you want to call it, where it's never been easier to make money. It's never been easier. Like, you can use AI. I've actually, after this session, I've got a session on AI tonight that I'm training my community on. You can use things like ChatGPT to write blogs, to sell online products, e-commerce. You've got, there's so much possibility out there. But I think that actually, to some degree, gives people overwhelm, because they haven't earned their stripes, understood the basics, learned that you have to wait sometimes. It doesn't always just come overnight. Sometimes it can. I want to build a YouTube channel. I want to have a million TikTok followers. But okay, well, that means you've got to do content every day consistently without any reward, without any response. And I think if people can get their head around putting out content and giving and giving and giving and expecting nothing in return, that's when it will work. And the challenge, I think, with, I don't want to say all youth, because actually it's not, I've got millennials that work for me, and they're incredibly, incredibly motivated. They work really bloody hard, and it's not all, but some. I think if you can come back to what we said at the beginning, they can work out what it is they actually want. They can stop comparing themselves to other people and do what matters to them, and put the work in. Over time, they'll be successful. And there is no participation awards in the real world. We've got, a whole generation, 20 years worth of kids who were given 8th place certificates, and that, that's fine. But there's no certificate for 8th place in the real world. And so I think there's definitely probably a bit of a learning curve in that space for people. But I think as leaders of businesses, our jobs as leaders is to understand what they need, what they're doing for their life, and how we as leaders, employers, entrepreneurs, how we can help them to achieve those things as quickly as they can, obviously, because no one wants to wait, right? I don't want to wait. You don't want to wait, but we've just learned to wait because that's how we were taught. If we as leaders can inspire people to want to put the work in, they will get there faster. And if those two things can combine well, then it will work.
Yeah. That has been an amazing session, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
I really, really loved this session. Thank you once again for being with us. I would massively recommend everyone watching this to go and connect with Sarah. She does her own events. There's loads of stuff that she's doing behind the scene. If you follow her, which I recommend you must, there is so much wisdom there. And if you watch this session again, if you already watched it, watch it again. Because it's not just, like I said, what you saw us discussing and sharing, but there's so much wisdom in there. It can massively change your life. So go and watch this at least twice, and just implement this in your life. It will massively change it. Go and follow her, and that will lead to what they call surround yourself with the people that you want to be like. And you've been amazing, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you
for having me. And to anyone watching, please do connect with me, because I'd love to hear from you. And if there's anything I can do to help, then shout.
Yep. Thank you.